My name is Mary Salvani. I'm a person with a disability that's on AISH, who happens to also volunteer at the Alex Community Food Center and Inglewood Community Garden.
AISH is an acronym for Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped, and it's a monthly pension. We like to refer to it as a pension rather than benefits, because when it's referred to as benefits, it changes people's perception. But if we refer to it as a disability pension, it's more dignified, given to people with disabilities who have proven through medical eligibility and financial eligibility that they meet the requirements of the program. Typically, it's $1,688 per month, but it can also be reduced depending on if there are other sources of income, such as family income, employment income, CPP disability income, and employment insurance. We refer to living with a disability as having a poverty tax. Having a disability is very expensive. It means that you may not have transportation to get to the cheaper grocery stores. So you have to take an Uber, or you have to take a taxi in order to get to various stores. A lot of people with disabilities use accessible transportation, and accessible transportation doesn't let you get on board with 4 bags of groceries. You're limited to 2 bags of groceries. Another example of a poverty tax would be having to pay co-pays for medical appointments, or when you're applying for AISH, you need to get a medical form filled out, and that's $135 typically. People who are living in poverty can't afford that. So a simple thing like a medical copay to fill out forms could prevent people from applying for their AISH benefits and whatnot. Another example of a poverty tax would be in late fees and fines. If you don't pay on time, you're typically levied with an interest rate. And if people aren't able to pay the original sum, they're definitely not able to pay the increased penalty for paying late.
The property tax for me means I'm always wondering where I'm going to get my next meal, or how I'm going to dress, and it affects. It says why. It always says to me, like, why does it cost so much more to have less? I find that there is never enough, and I'm always using savings to pay for things, and thus when I get saved up for something, it never happens.
People in poverty tend to have trouble with obesity and diabetes and all those things. It costs them a lot more to get other things like clothes, for example. Like if you're going to get extra large clothes, usually there's a price difference between that and the smaller clothes. It also costs more because you get medication and stuff. Sometimes, like AISH covers my medication right now, but sometimes there's the odd medication that AISH doesn't cover that I need, that I have to pay for it. There's also medical care, because of course when you're not feeling good and you're diabetic, you're accessing the healthcare system more. In regards to transportation, well, if I didn't have Access Calgary, I would be taking regular cabs to grocery stores. And because I live in a place where there is no grocery store in the community, it's quite expensive, because the distance to get to an affordable grocery store is longer, and then but the distance to go to a more expensive grocery store is a bit shorter.
I like living downtown because it's convenient. I can walk almost everywhere. Walkability to me of a community is important. I should be able to walk almost everywhere, which means get food, get groceries, get to recreation, get to my classes is accessible.
Yeah, how about outreach, different outreach workers who take turns taking me grocery shopping on Fridays. I have a grocery list and then they take me grocery shopping. I usually go to Walmart over here. 5 to 10 minute walk. Usually I like run on my bike to Walmart.
Sometimes an outreach worker can get sick and, we do what we can. Sometimes we have to split shifts or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she has to go do her own shopping. Sometimes she goes grabs a quick thing, eggs or milk, whatever she needs.
I'm so grateful that I have a support team through the Duke Blanks Connect Center, like the outreach workers and the staff and the day staff and the managers there to keep helping me with my goals and to make sure I have enough food, healthy choices when there's a bunch of junk all the time because I'm trying to lose weight. And it's so hard for me to try to stick to healthier stuff when my lot of junk all the time. And I'm working on my cooking skills too, so I can spend more time cooking meals and less time eating out, which is very expensive and really unhealthy.
The typical budget for someone on AISH is very limited to basic needs. It typically includes rent, groceries, transportations, maybe tenants insurance. Most people who are living on AISH and don't have roommates or don't live with family members or don't have a spouse are living on the brink, really. There's no room for extras. $1,688 is a basic amount of money that doesn't pay for any of the things that make life worth living.
Well, I don't really eat out that much. No, I haven't gone to the theater like in a long time. I just stay home and I cannot go swimming right now because I haven't gone swimming for a while because of COVID.
We've compared the Alberta Living Wage report that was released in the fall of 2021 to the budget of somebody who is receiving AISH, and it's sorely lacking. The Alberta Living Wage Network and the report says that a living wage for a single person living in Edmonton works out to about $21.49 an hour. And a living wage is defined as a wage that meets all of your needs and some of your wants. People who are receiving AISH really don't have room for a lot of wants in their lives. It's a basic stipend in order to exist.
I eat a lot of things that might not necessarily be that great for me. My grandma says, you shouldn't eat so much chocolate. And I'll say, well, what do you do when you don't want to make cookies? Because you don't have the time. And the chocolate is cheaper than buying the ingredients for the cookies. And what can you do when you're like me and things like fructose triggers my heartburn and then it just makes a mess. So I don't eat too many fruits.
So there are some additional supports through AISH that can meet people's dietary concerns. For example, if somebody is diabetic or celiac or lactose intolerance, there is an extra monthly amount. For lactose intolerance, it's $21 a month. For celiac, it's $83 a month. And for diabetics, I believe it's $21 a month. So that extra amount of money is supposed to pay for the difference in costs between what is, typically a loaf of bread compared to something that somebody with celiac would have to purchase, which could be double the price.
Well, lactose free means milk is more expensive, and it means milk comes in smaller containers. I can't, not that matters to me anyway, because of my physical disability, I can't lift one of those 4-liter jugs anyway. It costs me more by milk, and it comes in 2-liter containers. Celiac. Now, following the celiac diet with my limitations on AISH is practically impossible. I have instead adapted myself to follow what I call a low gluten diet, which means some of the things that I had that had a low amount of gluten that I enjoyed. And when we were shopping together, you noticed that I bought a more expensive bread. The reason why is because the other celiac bread, the cheaper one that Save on Food sells, the one that Grandma normally buys for herself, she'll say to me, why don't you like this cheaper bread? And I'll say, it's too hard when it's toasted. And anyways, what I find is that particular bread that I bought is the only one that stays soft once toasted. The other one's hardened up too much, and losing that front tooth has made me have to eat differently. It's made me have to eat mostly soft foods.
I'm a pre-diabetic, so I try to stay away from the sugars as much as possible. And I try to read the labels, but it's not always easy to read them. The diabetic food, like the no sugar added stuff or no sugar at all, tends to be a bit more expensive. If it wasn't for Kin Market and the Alex, it definitely would increase my food cost when I go grocery shopping.
One thing that we're finding is with the cost of food increasing, those additional amounts for dietary exemptions are not increasing. So we can see when we go out to the grocery store that a loaf of gluten-free bread could be upwards of $7, whereas you and I, or somebody without a dietary restriction, could probably find regular bread for $2.50. So we became aware that there were significant impacts on the ability of people to get their dietary needs met and to get healthy and nutritious food. COVID showed us that a lot of people relied on services such as Instacart, Click and Collect. People with disabilities don't necessarily have access to that type of technology. They don't have access to transportation. ETS or DATs are not going to stop at several stores or not going to allow you to bring in a whole 2 weeks worth of groceries. So a lot of people with disabilities still had to venture out to get their food because they couldn't afford the $10 service fee.
Up until last February, we didn't have a grocery store that our transit bus goes to. Now we do, except for it goes to Superstore in downtown Calgary, but it's not safe nor accessible for me to get into that store. Because I use a walker to get in, I cannot go in the front doors where there's stairs. And I'm scared to go in the back door because it's just the alley and no one else is there. I live in the community of Inglewood, and I have to travel to the community of Forest Lawn, basically to the Alex, which I think is 7 kilometers or 8 kilometers away to get food.
Studies are saying that inflation was 5% in 2021. 5% of somebody's AISH benefits is $80. So if you think that the cost of living for them really increased about $80 a month, that's taking a significant chunk out of their monthly benefits.
Inflation has made the cost of food higher. It is meant that we do more grocery shopping when I'm with grandma, because it means I can go to Walmart, get the best prices for things. So grandma, I would have to say that grandma offsets food costs, yes. My grandma gives me a lot of food, things that she's already cooked in big batches in her kitchen, particularly things like leftover chili, leftover stew.
If I just had AISH and nothing else, it'd be really hard to live. Sometimes my mom and dad give me some food. Like the other day, they bought some milk for me and that. And I go to the Alex sometimes for their free meals. And also to Kin Market, which is a new pay what you can market here in Calgary. Kin is very new. It's only been here about 4 weeks now. But I like the fact that you get to choose your price and you get to choose the food you want. So you're not wasting your money on something that you do not need.
Many people don't have yards or balconies that they can even put a tomato plant on. So a lot of us supplement or garden in the summer and look forward to it. But we found that with a lot of our members, we're planting a community garden, and some of them were saying, we can't even have these seedlings because we don't even have a window more than 2 feet wide who's going to let sunlight into the house. So being able to supplement, like many of us typically do, is not an option for people.
I do not have access to a garden. Apartments just don't have any, it seems. And if they do, they're too expensive.
So one of the calls to action that Self Advocacy Federation feels is important is to reverse the change of AISH dates. People need to know that that money is in their bank accounts at least 5 days before the end of the month. It allows them time to prepare and make arrangements to arrange transportation and to source sales and to pay their rent. We've done the math when it comes to the AISH pension, and it works out to just over $10 an hour. And minimum wage is $15 an hour. So we believe that the fair thing, the just thing, the human rights and the dignified approach would be to ensure that the people that you are providing this pension for are not penalized because they're disabled. COVID taught us, like our leaders and our government know that $2,000 is the minimum amount that people need in order to live. It was evidenced by the hundreds of thousands of people who collected CERB benefits during COVID. They didn't give $1,688. They gave $2,000 for a reason. And we believe that people on AISH need to be afforded the same dignity.
And another thing that would help us all, pass the Canadian disability benefit. I know that's federal, not provincial, but past that, it'll put the Canadian disability benefit out, and then people like me would not have to live in poverty and try to get by on practically nothing, because we would have enough to be able to live.
If I had two calls, I would say I would put basic income in one call because I have a second one for this one. But I would like to raise the income that people get so that it's at the cost of living and indexed annually, and that their income is secure. They're not scared that it's going to go away. And then for food, I don't know, I've seen recently food forests in some states, and food and community gardens that really embrace community, like everyone is allowed to be there, not just the rich that can rent the plot, but everyone who lives there is welcome to garden there. I would like to see that happen more here.
Listen to the disability community when they tell you that they're not doing well, that they need more supports, that they need help, and that they are barely surviving.
Nick Solid said in one of his presentations that in Toronto, poverty is $1 billion business. I think that's the same case here in Alberta too.